Perfect day here for the Jimmy Palumbo Show. That's right. I'm your host, Jimmy Palumbo, alongside my broadcast buddy for so many years, your friend and mine, behind the glass, Mr. Chris Gucci. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Still licking my wounds. It's been a rough month of October. Glad to put it behind me. Didn't
Yes,
experience a
yes.
win at all.
As many of you know, Chris Gucci has been is a Packers fan. His whole family's a Packers fan, and the Packers have been very, very good for about 15 years. And he's finally experiencing what actually is just really normal NFL fanship when your team stinks. And that sucks to be that way, but they're not out of it yet. Although I don't see anything happening there, but you could be a fan. I'm sure we're going to talk about that later. And I want you to be not a fan, but critical of them. But the Giants, yeah, well, we're going to get to that in a second too. But this is show number 86, Christopher. And, listen, everybody knows that 86 to the Giants means Johnny Perkins. Okay, three guys just drove off the road. Or it could mean Lionel Manuel, starting wide receiver for the Giants for many years. And also, and I don't know if you know this guy or you remember, but I learned something while doing my research. Ex-Jet coach Rich Kotite. Remember him?
I do.
He played
You're
for the
telling me?
Giants. He
No
played for the
way.
Giants at tight end. Did you? How could I have not? Rich Kotite gets bashed every day on WFAN
Well,
all
he's
the
a he
time.
was a he was a bad head coach.
Right. But how could I not know he was the tight end for the Giants? I have to call my uncle later on. In like 68, 69, something like that. His number was 86. You got Hines Ward. You got James Lofton. But listen, I have to go with Captain Obvious here. The one of the greatest football teams of all time, the 1986 football Giants. Listen, this was just a great team in so many ways. Hall of Fame coach, head coach, Hall of Fame, about to be a Hall of Fame coach, Belichick at defensive coordinator. I guess two or three Hall of Famers on the roster as well. They were 14-2. They went to the playoffs. They smoked the 49ers with Joe Montana. They beat the Redskins 17-0, and they beat the Broncos 39-20 in the bowl. They gave up 23 points in the playoffs. That's pretty good defense. They had great linebackers. Anytime you talk about linebackers as a team, a group, the Giants' 86 linebackers are always in that discussion. LT, Carl Banks, Harry Carson, and Gary Reasons. Also, Pepper Johnson was a rookie. You completely got to throw that in. Let me just check one button here, see if I'm getting any. There you go. But also, there's a couple of crazy things about 86. Maybe you didn't realize. Number one, I was at the opening day in Dallas. We flew there. We decided for some reason my brother thought it was a good idea to go to Dallas. And it was Herschel Walker's first game as a Dallas Cowboy. And Herschel Walker is the only reason why the Cowboys were good in the 90s, because Dallas traded him and they got like 79 picks for one player. Matter of fact, I think to this day, teams don't even do that anymore. And of course, Herschel Walker beat us with a big run. It was so depressing flying out there all excited. But a couple things about being at that game. The county where the stadium used to be, I guess it was Irving, was dry. So we were looking to get beer. And the guy goes, yeah, go to the beer barn. You just got to go down, 4 lights, make a right. And we didn't know. We had county lines. We don't do that shit in New Jersey. So we drive, we go to the light, we make a right, and we drive down. And we're in like these woods. It's like nothing. And all of a sudden, there's a huge barn. And there was beer in it. Like, this wasn't like the name of the business wasn't the beer barn on Route 22. This was like there was barn in a beer. You know what I mean?
So it was basically like a drive-through.
Yeah, kind of. You pulled in, and some like hick looking guys like, "What do you need?" And it was just beer all over the place. And I was like, we got like a case of Bud cans. I think we were kind of like scared a little bit, like, let's just get beer and get out of here. So that was crazy. We went in, we had our Giant jerseys on. The fans were very nice, though. Dallas fans. See, the real Cowboy fans actually live there. They're just normal fans, like Philly fans and Redskin fans. They're not like the asshole Jersey fans. They're just regular, like they're there and they're Dallas Cowboy fans. And this was 1986, so it wasn't like it is now where fans travel and all that stuff. But another thing about the 86 Giants, I really forgot about this. The whole Gatorade shower thing, like I forgot. I'm not saying we invented it. I'm sure it was done, but the Giants put that on the map. And just about every team still does it now. And whenever I see it on TV, I don't think like, oh, the Giants did that. Like, you know what I mean? It's really odd to me. And they also had, to me, you had, besides Lawrence Taylor was MVP and he was the best player in the league. Offense or defense, he was the best. I still think he's the best football player of all time.
Crazy talk.
That's another argument. He's
not.
was.
That's just crazy.
Total domination.
So you have to eliminate all quarterbacks. Like you're eliminating quarterbacks, right?
Oh, it's not even close.
Well, if you eliminate quarterbers, then you can make a conversation about it. But you're not telling me that anybody is better than the best quarterbacks.
No, listen to me. You have to prep just as hard for Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers as you do for one person. Rodgers and Brady didn't change the position.
I'm not going to sit here and have. I'm not going to sit here and have this debate. Changing the position.
It's a great argument.
Necessarily, it's really not though. It's a quarterback-driven league. It always has been.
It
No linebackers get based on Super Bowl wins. It's only quarterbacks do. It's a quarterback-driven league.
Without Lawrence,
you can't tell me that Lawrence Taylor is a better football player than Tom Brady or these guys. It's just not.
No, I just think Lawrence Taylor is the greatest football player of all time. The Giants would have went 6-10 without him every year. Anyway, also was a little running back who lives in my complex that no one talks about. And this is something you could probably chime in on in terms of other players. Joe Morris was their running back. Now, little Joe, I don't recall a player, I guess a running back, maybe even, I don't know, like when you look at the great time, like Joe Morris is not on anybody's list, obviously. But in the Giants scheme, he was a major cog. I mean, like they ran, by the way, they didn't pass 40 times a game like they do now, 50 times a game. He was like the little train that could. He ran low, he ran hard. He had like 2 or 3 really good years, you know, statistically. But he was such a key. I'm trying to think of another player that was like that for other teams where like you almost forget about him.
How about like a Dave Meggett for the Giants? It's like a good
same thing. Meggett was like that for sure, and he's of course is
you could even kind of say like a Tiki Barber, but maybe not as good or didn't have the longevity that Tiki did, but that similar type where he wasn't really the guy that was getting the ball. They had Otis Anderson, right?
Yeah, no, that just was 86. Was Anderson was on the team, but he didn't play because Joe Morris was there. But he was little Joe, man, and he just ran hard for the Giants. Giants had bad receivers like they do now, which is I will get to the Giants in a little bit. Phil Simms probably had his best year. I loved Phil Simms. He was my guy. People want him in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he was a Hall of Fame quarterback because of injuries. I think if he didn't get injured in 2 or 3 seasons, I think Simms would have had really good numbers for a while for that era. But Hall of Fame, I don't see it. He just was a very good quarterback in the league, and there's a lot of those kind of guys. I got to go with the 86 Giants. I mean, the receivers stunk like they do now, which is killing Daniel Jones. He'd be in the top 16 quarterbacks. He's throwing to Dave and you and me. He's got no one to throw to. They had Bobby Johnson and Lionel Manuel, which you probably never heard of those guys. But the 86 Giants were good, man. And the best thing about the 86 Giants, they got smoked in the playoffs by a very good Bears team in 85. And Lawrence Taylor was big on saying he realized how intense the Bears were, and they needed to be that intense. And they were the following year. Then the next year, there was the strike, and everything else screwed them up. But I got my 86 show, the 86 world champion Super Bowl champs, the New York Football Giants.
And obviously, mine is a pretty obvious one on this go round. It's Antonio Freeman, number 86, receiver for the Packers. I met him a couple times. I've gone to Green Bay, and every year that I go, I haven't gone in a while, but every year that I've gone, I would do this tailgate party where there would be several players of the past just kind of hanging out. And there's a story. I'm sitting there, I'm looking left, it's Gilbert Brown. I look right, it's Antonio Freeman. And then I was like in the comic book store across the street like 20 minutes before that, and I saw the Sports Illustrated with him catching a touchdown in the NFC Championship. So I was like, I'm going to be right back. I ran across the street and I bought it, came over and had it signed. It's actually sitting in the office over there right now.
I've seen that. Yeah. I have seen. I didn't realize I thought you just got it signed. I didn't realize. Antonio Freeman, very good player for sure. It's all right. We got the 86 Giants.
He had that one catch on Monday night where Al Michaels has like one of his most famous calls of all time where he's like, he did what? I know you remember it.
Right,
It was
right. I
like off
remember
his
that.
back.
Yep, yep, yep. It was a little bit like what's his name? Um, who's the guy in the Giants who caught the ball off his face and all that? I can't even think of his
Oh,
name now.
David
That's sad as
Tyree.
that. David Tyree. All right. So, Antonio Freeman and the 86 Giants for here's show number 86. We can now Patreon. I have an interesting Patreon situation, Christopher. We're stuck at 14. However, I'm going to be accused of someone of buying love here. My good friend, Mike Lawler, otherwise known as Shecky, one of Artie's old best friends, came to my stand-up show, and he's a huge Dolphin fan. And last week's Stinks List just really stuck in the craw. And he came to my comedy show, and he was like, Jimmy, like, you Stinks List. He was like angry. He's like, you got to put the Dolphins higher. I'm like, I think they stink. They beat the Lions. The Lions stink. They beat the Lions by 4. I didn't realize the spread was 4.
The Dolphins don't stink.
Right. So I had him at stink. And he said to me, I can't give you Patreon money if you don't put my Dolphins higher. So I thought about this. I was like, wait a minute. Can Jimmy Palumbo of the Jimmy Palumbo Show, that's right, be bought for Patreon?
And the answer is yes.
And then that answer is maybe. And then I realized that I looked it over. I did my research because extensive research goes into the Stinks List. And I realized that I'll in a minute, you'll see whether or not Jimmy Palumbo can be bought. But until then, we are in, listen, we still have 14 Patreons. We're stuck on it. So we're in Pat Kelly, Hideki Arabu territory, still coming off of Lupinella. I'm going to run out of 14.
I think it's Luis Soho is number 14. That's like the Yankee. It's a famous number for the Yankee super sub.
Like famous, yeah, right. Just the guy who comes in. But we got Alex Stetzena, my sister, Mary Eileen Riccardi, Big Mike DeMosi, my mom, my cousin Joey Palumbo, Kappa Sig, Robert Pastor, James Kanowitz, my website guy who also came to see my show, my nephews, Jimmy Riccardi, John Henry Riccardi, Eric Palumbo from Austin, Texas, my second baseman and cornholelevel.com, Michael Caprio, my brother Frankie, who is getting involved in a Lawrence Taylor way with my Patreon, and also my Louisiana guy, Daryl Clark, and my latest one, which is now going on like 3 weeks, Mr. Greg Casalino, Colonia High School graduate. So I'm stuck at Lupinella and Hideki Arabu and Pat Kelly, 14. And we'll find out when I do my Stinks List later whether or not I can be bought for an extra whatever level he chooses. So, all right, now you know what time it is. It's really time for, first of all, I got to say, please go on the Instagram, the TikTok. I need people to sign up for all that. I got to prove to myself that, what we're doing here is good. So all sign up for all that. Look for me, official Jimmy Palumbo. Click. You guys know what to do over there. That would be helpful. Thank you very little. And this next thing is sponsored by Absolute Airwear. It is the Weight Summit. The Weight Summit. I had to think of a different word because it's sponsored by Absolute Eyewear. That's right. My oldest and veteran advertiser, Absolute Eyewear, 42 Main Street, Woodbridge, New Jersey, 732-326-3937. Craig and Johnine, they're opticians. They're awesome people. Go in there. They got everything. They got full service. They got prescription eyewear, prescription sunglasses. They got, you do glasses for the kids. Chris, they got eye exams. Everything's done on site. They got contacts. You get $100 off a complete pair when you mention the Jimmy Palumbo Show, and they'll take care of you. It's got to be a complete pair, but they'll take care of you. They're open 5 days a week. Now, Chris, why do you think they're closed, especially this year on Sunday?
Well, that's Giants football, obviously.
That's right. And why are they traditionally closed on Wednesdays?
That would be softball days.
Yes. So that's why they closed. They shut down the doors just to play softball with Johnny Trino. And listen, they got all kinds of things. They got Ray-Ban Coach Ralph Lauren, Jimmy Choo, Silhouette, Michael Kors, Vogue, Maui Jim, Costa Del Mar. And ladies and gentlemen, they have Oakley's personal glasses. No, they have Oakley glasses. Go check it out. Absolute Eyewear is sponsoring my weight summit. Now, listen, you've been hard on me, Chris, especially when now I'm trolling your show, as you call it, because I make funny comments in the comment section when your team sucks.
Well, wait,
That's okay.
who's that weren't funny though. That was the point. You're trolling.
Oh,
I know what you're trying to do.
That's
What
not
you're
true.
trying to do is you're trying to get a rise out of me, and borderline successful at that. But it's more of a piling on thing where it's like there's 8 or 9 people all at once.
I know, but I count. You're on my show. I count a little bit more. I know I'm the aging liaison. I am falling into the depths. I am like I'm just another fella around there now with Father Paul bringing in downloads out the wazoo. He's by far. He's by far your best. He's by far your best podcast.
But he's not. He's not.
Look, he's not on the network.
To be clear, he's not on the network. Father Paul is just. He is a client.
Yeah, he's a client, which is I don't know why you wouldn't want those downloads, but yes. So you've been busting my balls, and
that's another conversation, but it's very new. We'll see how it goes.
Listen, I came in last week at 198.
Excuse me.
It's okay. God bless you. I came in at 198, and I came in this week at 197.5. Now listen, I have been hovering in this area, so my weight was less. Exercising more. I have an appointment with ShopRite today to buy more healthy food. I've been eating better, and but you know what kills me? Some of the late nights I'm home, I watch television. If there's I'm like a cockroach. If there's something in front of me, I eat it. So, but I lost a half a pound. So hopefully by end of the year we'll have a little weight loss. Tough schedule coming up with the holidays, but you know what? It's doable. I think that's an old school thing. Oh, the holidays, you eat a lot. Listen, I'm a fat bastard all year.
Look,
I don't need the holidays.
I do not want to hear you in about a month talk about, oh, it's the holidays. It was a rough weekend.
I will never use that as an excuse. I won't use that as an excuse.
Bro, I've heard of
I'm running out of excuses
that are borderline not actual excuses. It's really just bad choices. And it's like
wait. Okay, yes, I've been making bad choices, but you got to give me. Is there any credit for not? I'm not losing.
Maintaining. Like, all right, we'll put it like this. You know how like some boxers, their claim to fame is that they could take a punch, but like then when you watch them fight, all they do is take punches. That's kind of where you're at right now. You're just you're in the fight. You have a puncher's chance.
I'm not losing any rounds. 10-8 is really what you're saying.
With each passing day, I mean, there might be a 10-8 or 2 sprinkled in there. It depends on the weekend.
I don't think that's true. That's true. But I always come back Sunday night, Monday, and get geared. So I lost a half a pound. That's the way it goes. I know this bit's getting old, but I like busting my ball. And you know what? It's keeping me. I'm pissed I haven't lost weight. So,
well, I'll say that it probably has kept you around the 198 mark, 197.
I think
you haven't crossed back into 200 range. And I tell you,
and
I thought then the segment's over.
Last week I thought when I stepped on the scale, I was like, oh, this could be it. And I hovered. But anyway, that's it. Now let's get to a couple of things. All right, a little sports stuff. This is the section where I talk a little bit about sports. My Rutgers McScarlet McKnights. Yeah, that game was rough. It was rough in many ways. I've been a Rutgers fan since the fall of '83, and I actually did for this segment. My record as a Rutgers fan is 186, 268, and 5 ties. Can you believe 1 year Rutgers had 2 ties, and that was to start the season?
I have to be honest. I think that's better than I thought it would be.
No, well, hang on. I'm not done with the stats on this. But do you ever recall a team starting out 0-2 in football?
No.
That's crazy, right? Of course, Rutgers. They've had 40 years. I've been following them. They've had 12 winning seasons. Okay. They've had 1-0 goose egg, 0 wins. They've had 3 1-win seasons and 6 2-win seasons, but they have had 3 9-win seasons. That seems high to me. But yes, I have been watching this team. We just lose so much. But I went there. I'm a fan, and that'll never go away. This game hurt in many ways because, number one, I don't think Minnesota's all good. They're better than us. and they had the bye. And some teams do well after the bye, some teams don't. This team came out after the bye, and they were, he used to coach with Shiano. This guy, he had them so prepared. Rutgers couldn't do anything offensively. But the thing that was most frustrating is we were down 14-0, right? But like it was 14-0. It was 14-0. It was 14-0. It was 14-0. And Chris, as a fan, even when you're getting bitch slapped and you're only up 14-0, what starts to happen? The fourth quarter started, and it was still 14-0. Well, you start thinking, hey, even when you're up 14-0, you say, hey, they come down the field and score 14-7 with 10 minutes to go. And all of a sudden you're like, oh shit.
But there is those games where you're watching and it's 14-0 and you're like, this game might as well be 46-0.
That's how it was. However, we had a couple of drop passes on some drives that maybe could have led some, but we just got completely annihilated.
So was Rutgers practicing getting shut out for next week's game? Where they don't do his thing?
But before we get to next week, there's a couple of things. The quarterback situation. So they put the kid Wimsatt in, and he plays the whole game. Last week they put Vedral in. He plays. Now, I guess Wimsatt wasn't ready. Rutgers got a little screwed up here, and here's why. Now, to start the season, their quarterbacks, QB1 was Vedral, QB2 was Simon, and QB3 was Wimsatt. Vedral got hurt, and Wimsatt couldn't beat out Simon for the job, really, what happened. And then as Vedral started to come back, Vedral went back to his QB1, but his hand is so hurting, and he probably knows the playbook well, he can't really throw. And so what do? They finally put Wimsatt in. Now, Wimsatt was hurt for 5 weeks. Whether he finally, Shiano, I don't think messes around. You're either how you do in practice, how you move up. The kid gets in the game. But what was frustrating, the first 3 weeks of the season, he was healthy. And because he didn't get all the snaps, and here it is week 8. And now, like, there's communication things, the snap, how they go hut was off. There was some jumping off sides. And supposedly the reporter said that Wimsatt went to the offensive lineman and say, hang in there. I'm a different cadence. I'm thinking like, this should have been done week 2 and 3 instead of now. They went with that rotating thing. And then sadly, I don't think he looks the part. He's big. He's strong. He's got a rocket, like he's got like an NFL kind of arm, one of those where he could throw a laser kind of deal. But to be honest with you, he didn't do anything. Everybody's like, because he's young and everybody thinks he's a running quarterback. He doesn't run. They don't call plays for him to run. And I think Simon's faster than him. He's not really a runner. And he did nothing. Play calling, and the Minnesota defense shut down every option that we had. It was horrible. I wish the kid well. I hope he's got to play now. He's the guy. They're going to start him this week against Michigan. This was the game they had to have. I think this would have put them in chance to really just got to win one more if they had won last week. Now they play, Michigan State, Michigan, Penn State, and Maryland. And maybe the Maryland, Michigan, it's not there. To go 2-2 in that stretch would be, I don't want to say impossible because Penn State may quit. And Maryland quarterback gets hurt a lot, but Michigan State's off this year. But they are running into a juggernaut this week, man. They're running. I don't see.
Rutgers' offense is really bad, and it's like,
and they lost their.
That's really what it comes down to. They
lost their running back. The kid Brown got hurt. A couple days before the game, they ruled him out for the season, and he was running well. I think he would have made a little difference in the Minnesota game, but yeah, what a bad week. This is even worse to me than playing. I mean, it's late in the season now. Michigan's on a roll. They're really playing for the whole damn thing. They look good. They've been pounding teams. I can't believe the spread's only 26. I think it should be higher. I'm curious if it goes up as the week goes on. This is a very bad thing. And I don't know, I'm looking at Rutgers just loses all the time. I'm a little down on them this week. I won't shake this one off. I don't know. I think they're going to be 4-5, and then they got to play, Michigan State. And I just think 4-8 is really a strong possibility. And they're going to be on national TV next week. Night game, 7:30 at Shai Stadium, and I think it's going to be like going to a funeral. I can only hope and pray that Michigan is looking past to play somebody else. But even if they look past, I think they'll regroup in the like. I get the feeling even if Rutgers came out,
they can't score.
Crazy.
They can't score enough points early for them to put Michigan away.
Let's just say, for the grace of God, Rutgers is somehow up. It's tied 10-10 and a half, right? What are they going to do in the second half? Harbaugh's going to go in. They're going to bust each other's ball. They're going to scream and yell, and he'll get them all fired up. The talent gap is too much. I just don't. It'll be one of the biggest upsets of all time, if you ask me. And that's depressing. So we'll move on from my Scarlet Knights. But a positive thing is Rutgers Hoops starts next Monday. And I like this team. I like some of the new guys they brought in. I watched the scrimmage on Sunday a little bit. They got this guy, Cam Spencer. They got some young guys. They got some guys who are going to step up. I think Rutgers will be on the bubble again for the tournament. I think different guys are going to get more shots. I think they're going to be fun to watch. It's going to be like kind of how they were about 4 years ago. Tough schedule, but I think Rutgers will be. I always look at the season like this: basketball. First thing I want to do is try to make the NIT. You know what I mean? That's how we look at it. And then after that, you see, with 6 games to go, it's always cool for a Rutgers fan if we still have a shot to make the tournament. In other words, there'll be games with 6 games to go that are winnable. Say, guys, you know what? You want to make the tournament? You got to win this game. You got to beat Indiana at home or on the road, that kind of thing. So I think they're going to be fun to watch, and we're going to be doing more on Rutgers Hoops later on. And I will get to my football Giants, as you mentioned. Yeah. Well, listen, Giants are 6-2 now. Most Giant fans, they like to kid around with Cowboy fans and stuff, but let's face it, the Giants aren't that good. But you know what? In the NFL has been littered with teams who are not that good, and they have winning records and over the years, and they're 6-2. And, they got the rest of the season to go, and I think they'll be in the hunt for the wild card. Seattle's pretty good. It's tough to win there. It was 13-13 in the fourth quarter, so it really wasn't as bad as people made it out to be. The fumbles hurt us. I think Daniel Jones had some trouble because he's just I'm sorry, they just have no one to throw to. And I don't understand why people go like, no. Whenever I watch other games, there's always a stud receiver on the other side. And we have nothing. I don't understand why they even traded Kadarius Toney, because he's a long shot anyway. Why not when you have nobody? I feel like we got rid of one of our lottery tickets. And even though he's been hurt, we're so weak in that position.
I think that I'm gonna go ahead and trust. Yeah, I'm gonna trust the front office on this one, and I think that there was a fracture there, and these guys are just not messing around. And he wasn't on board with what they wanted to do.
I get it.
And hey, they moved on from him.
It wasn't his draft.
Yeah, it's a new regime there, and they're not.
But man, we are real. We're weak, and
it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue right now with anything that the Giants front office is doing, because it's been a couple years since they've had somebody capable, and let's just wait and see their approach and give them a year or two.
I get it. Plus, they picked up 2 picks, which I think they're going to use them maybe to move up if they need to get a QB or something. But this is great. You know what we have for Giant? I mean, let's bring everybody back here. The Giant fans, we have November football. We haven't had post-Halloween football in Giant Land in years. So we have we're almost looking the way, even if we lose the next 4 games in a row, we lose, we're 6-6, and we're getting close to Thanksgiving. We haven't had that. The Giants have stunk for so long. I'm enjoying it. I went to a party to watch the game. I haven't done that in 10 years. People are wearing jerseys again. It's all good. The Jets, of course, shit the bed. Another crazy game there. But listen, the Giants and Jets are, 5-3. Were they 5-3, 6-2? We have football back in New York for the first time. And
Jets might finish 5-12 with the way that offense looked too. I mean,
you know what? They're not, but they have 5 wins now, and they usually don't do that. So it's fun to watch football again. Now I'll let you discuss your Packers. I personally think the Packers, this is one of those years, I do not think they're going to make the playoffs. They just look off from top to bottom, and nothing looks right. I think it's just one of those with Rodgers, I don't even whether he's going to play next year for the Packers. Who the hell knows? But uh, um, they just look. It's like just not going to be their year. I don't like. They're not a team that's going to win 6 in a row. I don't see that. I think they're going to struggle
as far
all
as
year.
the playoffs go, it's not going to be an easy thing. But when you look around the league right now, particularly in the NFC, there's some teams that are right there with the Packers that are, as of now, playoff teams. The Commanders. I expect that Green Bay can right the ship and pass teams like that in the standings and sneak into the playoffs. You have to remember there's a 7th team now, so there's definitely going to be some, maybe a sub 500 team that sneaks in the NFC, and maybe even a team that's 9-8. So maybe even a couple of those if you look at the way the divisions are set up. I'm not saying that that's a positive to cling to. The Packers don't look good right now. But if you're going to look at the Buffalo game as the barometer, I feel like out of the last 4 games, getting beat by Buffalo on the road by 10 points, that's the best look out of all of them. We lost at home to the Jets by double digits. We lost in London to the Giants in a game where we had in the bag and got completely dominated the second half. These were games that we were favored by over a touchdown. And then Washington, we should have beaten Washington to a backup quarterback. We looked bad in all 3 games. Going on the road to Buffalo, losing the game that we expected to lose, I don't think the wheels are coming off yet. And I did see positives in the second half as somebody who hasn't seen their team win. You just want to see them fight and play hard. At least I saw that. It's better than I could say the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, but I get it. I just, to me, I look at it to you as a fan. You've been it's been a really nice run, and there's always going to be a year in there where
it is what it is. It's not,
but
not fun, but it's what are you going to do? I guess I'll take my medicine as it comes, and hopefully the Packers go on a run, and I could say, "Haha, I told you." But
which brings me to the fun part of the show here, which is sponsored by CornholeLevel.com, the Jimmy Palumbo world famous NFL stinks list. And so many of the games stink. And so I have to get a sponsor for this. CornholeLevel.com. That's right, Chris. You know what this gadget is? It's a stocking stuffer. It's a great barbecue thing. You stick this gadget on your cornhole board, and it levels it up, down, to, fro. It's like a level designed for a board on the angle and all that, Chris. Because I know you would not want to be embarrassed by having a party.
I mean,
and having an uneven cornhole.
Yeah, like just playing cornhole is embarrassing enough. So if I'm playing it, I don't want to be not playing it the proper way.
Correct.
So, of course, cornhole level comes into play.
You know how I feel. Give me 25 minutes and I'll be ranked in cornhole. It's like pickleball, not hard game, but you got to have the proper board. And if you go to cornholelevel.com and say JP Show, you get 20% off your entire order. So it's only $19.95. Get them for the stocking stuffer. They'll ship them out right away to you. It's perfect. If you're a cornhole fan, you got to get this thing. You're going to love it. Trust me, you'll email me and you'll say, oh my God, Jimmy, you were right. This is awesome. So cornholelevel.com, which is owned by Mike Caprio, my second baseman, who replaced Mitch Fishman. And that is that. Okay, now the NFL, Jimmy Palumbo's NFL stinks list. That's right. Here we go. The Buffalo Bills, very good. The New York Jets dropped to average. Now, I'm going to skip the Miami Dolphins because that's my buddy Shecky's team. We're going to see how we're going to go here. New England Patriots stink. Baltimore Ravens, average. The Bengals and Browns and Steelers stink. I don't care what anybody says. I'm right about that. They stink. Tennessee Titans, average. Indianapolis Colts, Jaguars, and Texans. I'm sorry, you all stink. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs, another controversial one. I only have them as good. They didn't play last week, so I got to hold them off. I'm going to stick them at good. That's their penance for playing like shit in certain games. So it's going to be, I'm keeping them at good. I don't think that's going to last. I think they'll go to very good soon enough. But of course, the AFC West, everybody's favorite division. Chargers, Broncos, Raiders stink. Really stink, actually, if you ask me. Now, let's get to our NFC East, your friend and mine. Very interesting here. I have the Philadelphia Eagles as very good. I think they're kind of by far the best team in the league. I'm going to put the Dallas Cowboys. I have to put them at very good. I just do. They're playing well, and they deserve to get a very good. I don't know how long they're going to last. I'm putting them at their first Maybe it's their second very good of the year. I had to drop my Giants. I dropped them to good. 6-2 is 6-2, heading into a bye. And I have the Washington Commanders as average. So funny how the NFC East looks strong right now. Who the hell knows? Now, I have the Vikings, VG, very good. And the Packers, Bears, and Lions as stink, especially the Lions. I mean, it's hard to do what the Lions have been doing. The NFL is set up like the Giants have been bad for the last 8 years, but not as bad as the Lions. So, like, it's hard. You get draft picks that are high. It's hard to think about it. Like if someone said to you, Chris, you and Jimmy have to be the GM for the Lions for a year and a half, we'd be like, oh, all right. We'd show up there, we drive to the stadium, we go into the offices. All right, what do we got to do? All right, we got to get a coach. Let's get that. Let's get that coach. Even on draft day, Chris, we're up next. Who do we got? That receiver's good. Take him.
I would do better than the Lions. I agree, 100%. I feel like I would do better than the Packers too.
Well, it's hard. It's hard in the NFL to suck for that long. It's unbelievable. And Detroit, that city, does not deserve that. That's gross. We'll move on. NFC South. I got the Falcons as average. I got the Buccaneers, Saints, and Panthers as stinking. The Panthers stench with game last week. Out in Seattle, I have the Seahawks moving up to average now. I think the Seahawks might be better. And Geno Smith, you got to hand it to the guy. He played a great game. And the 49ers bumped up to average. And I got the Rams and Cardinals as stink. I did not see that coming. So that's it. Now, we got to get to otherwise known as, for the rest of the year, Mike Shecky Lawler. That's his name. His nickname is Shecky, even though no one calls him that anymore except for me and Artie. His beloved Miami Dolphins. Now, I had him on the stinks list. Everybody complained. He said to me, I will be pissed and not join your Patreon if you don't upgrade them. And I have upgraded them here from the Omni in Atlanta. The Miami Dolphins are now at 5-3, and they are average. I put them at average. Cannot put them at good yet. So that's it, Shecky. There is your Dolphins getting the average. And now you promised I want to see Patreon next week.
I'm sure the tier that he joins is going to reflect your rank. So it might just be average.
It's just. Well, let's see. See, I'm not. I look at it. I do my research. We go from there. So he said they should be upgraded. I looked. I agreed. And now you got to join Patreon. All right. I did a comedy show, Christopher, Friday at the Portobello's in Oakland for Unico of Ramsey. It's that Italian-American organization. And it went very well. I headlined. It was Bobby Gonzo, Joseph Anthony, and myself. I was the headliner. It was another sold-out event. It was cool. And I got to give it to my buddy Bobby Gonzo, the host. He hosted me in Avenel as well as a bunch of other shows. He's hired me. He is retiring from stand-up comedy. Chris, he's been doing stand-up since 1971. That's a long time. Yeah. And so his last show was hosting a Jimmy Palumbo sold-out show. And I want to thank Bobby Gonzo. I'm going to get him on the show. You have no idea. He's a great guy. And he also kind of trained Martin Lawrence. He worked with Rodney Dangerfield, not just was on stage with him, working on his act. He built a lot of local guys up like Mike Marino, was critical in how he looks at stand-up. He took me under his wing in the last couple of years. I've been doing more stand-up because of it. And he promised he would keep an eye on me and he's going to be looking over my set and whatnot going forward. But he retired. I brought him up on stage after I did my set, and I wanted to thank him. But he's a good guy. He's a kind man, God-fearing man. And you don't get that in I have lately I've been some of these comics that I've been hanging out with. Some of them are just a pain in the ass. They don't get it. And backstage should be fun and relaxed. You should be nervous maybe about doing your show, but you can't be a jerk off. And he is not one of those. So a big shout out to Bobby Gonzo retiring from stand-up. He used to be a big headliner back in the day. Other news, it looks like Avenel Performing Arts Center is bringing back the liaison veteran on aging, Jimmy Palumbo. The dates have not been set, but it looks like it's going to be in March. It's going to be a big one. I'm going to promote the shit out of that one. It's going to be like a Colonia high school reunion, and they're going to make everybody go to the bar and restaurant. Hopefully we'll pack the place. That'll be a lot of fun. I want to see some old friends. Probably doing the same material, maybe a little different here and there. Maybe you can get a night, Chris, and maybe come see. Maybe you'll Joe stuff, but who knows? Also, I'm in rehearsal right now, Chris. Did you know this?
I did. I heard whispers of Jimmy in wearing nutcracker tights, and I was confused.
Yes.
I said, wait, is it because they're really tight and they're going to crack his, or is it because
Chris, I am the liaison to Chop Sports, the aging veteran, the long-time backup quarterback who can win a game for you. As soon as it gets past that second or third quarter, I run out of gas, but I can still win a game for you with 8:05 left down by a deuce. Look at that. Mike Lawler just chimed in. No Patreon until Dolphins upgraded to good. Well, okay. I'm looking at the chats here. I don't agree with that, Shecky. That wasn't quite our agreement. However, okay, I think we should go the other way. Two ways. If they go to good, okay, you got to do Patreon. But if they go to stink, you got to do Patreon. And I'll be honest. As a matter of fact, I'm going to let Chris, me and him will, before the show, we will discuss the Miami Dolphins, whether or not they should go to good or stink. So if you think the Dolphins are so good, then they shouldn't go backwards the rest of the year. And if they do, you got to go to Patreon.
I wonder who they play this week.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't even matter.
It does.
It's the NFL, man. It's the NFL, man. Come on now. Anyway, Shecky, I love you, and thanks for coming to the comedy show. Or Mike, I got to keep on. I don't know him as Mike, but he's Mike Lawler, great guy. If you ever need power washing or anything like that, give me a call. He does. I'll get you in touch with him. So Nutcracker. Now Dolphins, I'm talented, Chris.
Dolphins play the Bears. They better win.
And that's a winnable game. So you listen. I haven't shoot either way. I'm a lock for getting his money. I'm a lock, right? Because what are the odds they stay just average the rest of the year? Could happen though. NFL, because most teams are average. Nutcracker, I'm talented, Chris, right? I have many skills in life. I am rehearsing the Nutcracker, which will be November 19th and 20th at the Ramapo Hills, or whatever the hell it's called, in Oakland, New Jersey. There's a high school there. 3 shows. 1 on Saturday night, 2 on Sunday. I'm performing with Natalie Joan Palumbo, my daughter, who plays Sabrina, and I am playing one of the dads in the background. And I actually have a little more to do. I have to carry a child across stage. I went to rehearsal yesterday. Chris, 5-hour rehearsal in a room with 60 kids aged from like 7 to 18.
And I would imagine you're going to have a couple more of these rehearsals. You're going to do one
every Sunday. I'll be missing Giant games because of this. That's my love of my daughter. That's how dedicated I am to the theater. I'm missing Giant games. First thing I said to a guy, I go, dude, this is harder. Last year, the Giants sucked. No one cared about the game. Now he's a Jet fan. I'm going, now Giants and Jets look like they're better. We got to have our phones out. But it was a sticky, hot room. The girls are jumping all over the place. They're sweating like pigs. The room has no ventilation. I'm like, I'm sweating my ass off. And but I had to learn the moves. I got a little dance thing there, and I have to carry a child across stage at the end of the party scene. Those of you scoring at home. But my daughter does a pretty good job. And it was cool because the cute thing is the lady who runs it, she yells at everybody, right? But she yells like a director does. I'm used to that. It's like a head coach. The head coach will yell at you. But my daughter doesn't like when she yells at me. She thinks she almost wants to yell out, "Don't yell at my daddy." But she's not really yelling at me. She's just telling me, "Jimmy, you got to step back, move." She's setting the play up. And then a couple of times she yelled at Natalie, and I was yelling at my daughter. I yelled at her even worse. I was like, "Nat, what are you doing? You got to, So, but Nancy King's great. It's hard. It's like 50 kids in a room, man. They're all bouncing off the walls. It's Sunday afternoon. They're shot. And the little girls don't know what they're doing yet. The ones who are 6 and 7 years old. But I'm having fun doing it. My stage wife, Amy's great. she wouldn't do without me. And we have laughs when we got to do as we're getting yelled at. It's kind of cool to be yelled at by your daughter's dance owner of, you know what I mean? It's like getting yelled by Bill Parcells and you're not really on the team. It's like I feel like a hot dog vendor and Parcells is yelling up at the audience. But it's cool. It's going to be a great show. It's actually a great production. And I'm not just saying that. I used to go to it before I was in it. I'm like, you know what? They do a nice job here. Sound like my father. They do a good job here. No bullshit. So I also want to discuss with you in detail Halloween.
Okay.
I hate Halloween. And yesterday was Halloween. And I feel like it was like, I thought Halloween was a month ago because they start selling Halloween stuff in July. And there's like a million different parties or events. And I can't stand it. I hate getting dressed up for Halloween. And the kids, not as many kids go around like they used to, running around, in the old days. Now I guess the candy's available at Walgreens year round. It's just it's like a different holiday, but it's so popular. It's like a $1 billion business. And adults are really into it now. And I fucking hate it. Are you a fan of Halloween?
Jimmy, you know better than to think that me, of all people, am a fan of Halloween. Come on, all the pageantry. I'm all for it for the kids, and like it's cool. But if it's Halloween and you go do the trunk or treat, you go see the nieces and nephews at the parade, and the kids are all cute. But when it comes to an adult function, and I'm expected to show up looking like something. Last year, I had to dress up as Disco Ken, and if I didn't, I would have been murdered by my girlfriend. So this year I ended up having to work, so I got to escape it was literally the best shift that I've ever worked in my entire life. We'll call it mischief night, and I didn't have to go to the Halloween party.
Right. Listen, the kid thing, let's get something straight. Someday, Chris, if you have kids, I know you got nephews and nieces and all that. There's nothing better than when your little munchkin and she puts on her first, or he puts his first costume
you
on.
See how I got Jimmy to do the 180 on Halloween right there?
On that end of it, and you walk around, and sometimes the girl gets. My daughter used to be nervous to knock on the door. She would always stand back, and then I'd have to hold her and knock on the door. That stuff is. And Dave Sturcio, a co-owner of Chop Sports, his kids were adorable. I think Natalie wore that same kind of costume, little princess there, Snow White, whatever it was, and his little Miles, my little Jet fan, all dressed up. It was so cute. That end of it's great. That's an hour though on Halloween day. I have no problem with that. But these adults running around, it became this bigger than life thing. It's like party. You know how Hallmark invented some holidays, they say, over the years? I feel like Party Fair invented this one. And all the empty buildings,
just like
they had to come up with a reason.
Capitalism and all that, and the way things work. It's like an economy stimulus. It's an economy stimulus every month we have one. We could actually talk about this if you'd like.
You know what happens to me?
Because that's where.
And does this happen to you where you do get some kind of costume, right?
No.
And then you put it away somewhere, and then the year, even if it's like something like on a t-shirt, and all of a sudden the year goes by, you're like, didn't I buy something, a stupid shirt to wear when you don't want to, you're bartending, you want to throw something on. I know I have like 4 Halloween shirts somewhere.
Yeah, I probably do. I just have
I don't know where they are.
And I would just as well buy a new one rather than look for it. So I'll probably have a 5th by next year.
That's exactly. I ended up I wore nothing.
Yeah, I didn't do it this year.
I was working last night.
I had no time.
Yeah, it's just anyway. I'm glad it's like on to I feel like Thanksgiving got screwed a little bit over because Halloween's big. Anyway, if I was Mr. Thanksgiving Day guy, I would be, what's going to be the next big holiday, like Flag Day or something? We're all going to be dressed up in flags. Anyway, of course, this next segment is sponsored by Pine Tar Bar and Grill, 121 South Main Street, Forked River, New Jersey, 609-489-4286. You got to check out this place one of these days, Chris. I'll get you down there. They got TVs all over the place. Big NFL bar, big college football bar, big Rutgers and Penn State. They got a lot of fans watching. They got bands playing. They got the karaoke, the beer pong, indoor, outdoor. They got darts, My friend Tommy owns it. Really cool place to go. Trust me on that. My dad's pictures are hanging on the wall. Big poster of Beer League getting involved, which I'm going to talk about some of that in a second. So PineTarBarGrill.com, Forked River. Go check it out. That's really cool. So I want to discuss what happened on Thursday, Christopher. I went to Bookends in Ridgewood, New Jersey, a really cool bookstore known for its book signings, really. And it's probably the most extensive biography section of any smaller bookstore like around. And they have every major book signer goes through that place. They set it up really nice. But your friend and mine, Ralph Macchio, was signing his new book. And it was awesome. I got in touch with him. I said, listen, I'm 10 minutes away. I went down there with my buddy Dave DeLisi, and we kind of had to wait. And I walk in and the guy's, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to buy one. I said, but is Ralph here? I had a Beer League poster I wanted him to sign. And some guy's like, no, he's not signing anything. I said, listen, I'm a friend of his. And the guy was like, sir, you got to get online. I was like, listen, I've been texting him. I held up my phone. I said, and there was a curtain so Ralph could hear me. I didn't know he was behind the curtain. And he goes, well, let me go find out. He disappears. Then he says, all right, you can go behind the curtain. And then the guy at the counter, another guy at the counter goes, dude, you're the guy in Beer League. I was like, yes. In this classy event, Beer League was in the house. I go back there, and it was awesome because Ralph was finding out just as we walked in. He's like, Palumbo. He gives me a hug. And my buddy Dave was thrilled to meet him. There was all kinds of his reps were there. And he got the phone call from the New York Times saying that he made the top 10 New York Times bestseller list. And he was on the phone for that. That was cool. And then we chatted, talked about Artie a little bit. He signed my posters. And he said, oh, he said something, I don't even have one of these. And he signed it. And then we started talking. And I did mention to him, I said, Ralph, there's rumors. There's just rumors that there's something brewing with Beer League. And he goes, oh, here we go. He goes, all right, keep me posted. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. But he also said, and I'm going public with this, Mr. Macchio. He said, hey, man, I will do your podcast. Because I told holidays maybe when there's a little lull after Christmas sales. And I told him, you're on their list. I'm like, is it between me and Joe Rogan? I'm going to lose, you know what I mean? But he said he would do it, which would be fun. I actually can't wait to talk to him about Beer League and all that stuff. So hopefully he'll do my show within the next month or two, which would be cool. I got to take a picture of him. I posted it online, got a lot of response. He's just a nice guy, man. He's just not an asshole. You know what I mean? He's so successful over the years. I mean, he's the Karate Kid. It's an iconic movie, iconic series. Now, Cobra Kai is really one of the top streaming shows out there that adults and kids like it. How many streaming shows does a 50-year-old and a 13-year-old like? That's rare. It works. It's a fun, silly, easygoing show with some moral stuff. It's kind of like, to me, it's just a fun show. It's, not hurting anybody. No Game of Thrones. You know what it is? Like we've talked about this. I always say like these intense shows that are on the air, even like this Jeffrey Dahmer thing, you're watching it. You're like, well, why am I watching this? I shut it off. I just went to the last episode, find out where they were. And this show, Cobra Kai, is just like, it's light. It's light. Nobody's getting hurt here. You know what I mean? And he's just a nice guy. He always takes my calls when I call him. Always very polite. And I wish him the best. He's just a good guy, man. So big shout out to Ralph Macchio. So let's discuss two shows on Netflix I'm watching, Chris. By the way, are you a fan of Cobra Kai? Have you watched it at all?
Yeah, I'm not all the way up, but I've watched the first two and a half seasons. Are they on season 4 right
now? It might be 5 now.
So I got to get caught up. But yeah,
it's a kind of show.
A good show. It walks the line.
You watch it with your girl. There's like no harm.
It's watching it with my girl, no harm. But it's the reason why I like it, and it's like a show that kids could watch and adults could watch, but I feel uncomfortable watching it with my niece in certain points, which to me is a good thing,
right?
Because that makes it's like, I don't care that she's watching it, but I'm not trying to sit with her. And that makes it watchable on both fronts. I like the show. It's good. It's like they have in a good way.
To me, they did something that I think is very interesting with Cobra Kai. They don't, for a 13-year-old, they don't show any kind of physical, like kissing and making out and all that, but they have very salty language. And the reason why I think that works is, dude, that's how the kids
Oh,
talk
you
in
have
middle
no idea.
school.
It's way
Like,
worse, actually.
and you know what's great about it? Like, I think there's certain curses or phrases that are very risque that my daughter may or may not know everything about it when you say it. You know what I'm saying? Or, a year ago, maybe when she first started watching. So I don't mind, rather than show like, two high school kids, banging away, instead of doing that, they'll show an embrace, a half a kiss, but they'll have some salty language in there. And that's what got me embarrassed a few times in front of my daughter. But I'm like, kids yell that stuff. You remember middle school, kids yell that shit out in the hallway. So I think that's a good approach. It's a great show. It's popular. Good for Ralph. He's got two, I'm almost done with the book. The book's called Waxing On. The book really discusses the whole relationship between the movie and Cobra Kai. It's really cool stuff. I highly recommend getting the book. But let's discuss. I caught this show, The Playlist. Did you see this one on Netflix? No. You see it advertised? It's called The Playlist. It's subtitled for the most part. No, you got to check this out.
I have such a hard time.
It's about Spotify. Dude, you got to check this one out, though. It's so up our, like, it's about like the streaming of music, how the music industry flipped with the streaming. And it's from 6 point of views: the inventor of Spotify, the guy who wrote the check, the legal end with all the music bullshit, and what was the name of that streaming service that was illegal?
Hamster.
I forget. What was that called?
Hamster.
Hamster, yeah. and Napster.
It was Napster. You're right.
They cover all that stuff. And it's from a different point of view. I found it fascinating how, like, the music business, the movie business didn't get flipped because the hardware wasn't strong enough to download movies. It would take 3 hours, but songs would take seconds. And then someone realized streaming takes seconds. It's very, very interesting. I recommend it. It's like a little bit of a history lesson. It's well acted. It's well done. It's shot very creatively. There's different things that they do. I think it's cool. It's definitely worth, if you're into music, into current events like that, it's well worth it. The other one I was blown away by, and it's on a personal note. My grandfather fought in World War I. I mentioned that a few times on the show, and he deserved to get this medal. There's a new show on Netflix called All Quiet on the Western Front. It's a movie. And there's some subtitles, but it's also in English. And it's based on the book, and it's shows the war from the German side of it. From, the main soldiers are German. And dude, man, World War I from my grandfather's diary, how brutal it was. And I've read 4 or 5 books on World War I. World War I was a brutal war, man. The Americans were only there for a year and a half. It went on for 4 years. 33 million people died in that war. French and Germans, a whole generation was wiped out. It was a brutal war. And the 4 years they got in this, you've heard the phrase trench warfare. The whole 4 years, they only moved 100 yards. They dug in the trenches and nobody moved. But they would run out of the trench, get killed, run back. The other side would come up, get killed. Bombings, air raids, early planes, the double-wing plane, dropping bombs all over. It was a bloody war. The medical field was not was gruesome. I mean, if you got shot, they just really threw gauze on it, and they used that morphine ether kind of. I mean, it was just a brutal war. So many casualties, and Saving Private Ryan, that opening scene, how brutal that is. This is really shows you from how it's a lot of blood and violence in the beginning, but you're like, oh my God, these young kids. And they all went in with piss and vinegar singing songs. They thought they were going to go kick ass. There was no information. Nobody let them know, and it wasn't like, they thought like, oh, we're going to go there and kick the French's ass. And the French soldiers, we're going to go there and kick it. And they get there, and it was like, they were thrown right into battle, poorly trained.
It's like battle-hardened troops that they're going up against too.
like anything you're dealing with in your life right now, you feel like such a pussy when you watch this. Like, oh, look at Chris. He's starting a podcast company, Mojo and all that stuff. And then you watch this, you're like,
yeah, the Packers
this
are
guy
0
would
and
have
4. Packers are
yeah.
0 and 4 in October.
Rutgers stinks. And I'm watching All Quiet on the Western Front. I'm like, whoa. But it's very intense. And also they cover the political at the end. And I had read a little bit about this, a little politic move at the end with minutes to spare before the armistice. They fought and like thousands of guys died. All they had to do was it was like all they had to do was kneel on it, and nobody was going to die after that. And the German guy just decided to launch a little thing to bust balls, and so many kids died. Oh my God. But it's a really, really fascinating look at the war. Highly recommended, not for the squeamish, and not for something to watch late at night on a Sunday and you have to go to bed. It sticks with you. It really, really does. But it's really fascinating. And all the areas that they fought in, my grandfather fought in as well for the Americans. So all the campaigns, all the different cities they moved through, they put it up on the screen. I'm like, oh my God, that's where he was. Even some of the dates matched up, which was cool. So very, very cool. Shout out to my Grandpa Giuseppe Joe Palumbo, who should have got the Distinguished Service Cross. And I haven't worked on it in a while, but I have to go down to a museum down in Pennsylvania in Harrisburg that might have some information to help my grandfather get this medal, which will be cool. The last thing before we get off, I can't believe the show went long, and I'm going to have you talk about this. This tunnel bullshit with Michigan and Michigan State. Chris, college football is big money now. Billions of dollars. It's a TV show. NFL, college football, it's all TV shows now. That's all it is. Billions of dollars for the TV show people want to watch. Fantasy football, you name it. And I'm sorry. Like, you can't have the kids go in the tunnel. Like, all the stupid rules they have. To me, it's like, okay, before the game, it's like they know what band's going to go on. They know this, that. You know what they got to do? Guys, Michigan's going to go through the tunnel first. Add another 2 minutes to the halftime and let Michigan go all the way through. And then a referee is there and the referee says, okay, next team goes in. It's ridiculous to have these kids jammed in a 5x5 area. And look what happened. Kids acted like jerks. The Michigan State players really seemed wrong. Really beat the hell out of the kid. And it happened 2 weeks in a row. And Franklin from Penn State was kind of involved in it. To me, don't you think it's an easy solve? There's got to be some kind of rule when you can go in your tunnel.
Next time you build the stadium, don't have one tunnel, or just have them go in separately. But after the game, it's tough after the game because you could have them come out separately before the game because you can kind of plan it out, home team, away team. But when the game is over, it's like, all right, everyone get off. We got to do our.
You know what? You know what I say? I say if you got to sit out a game for targeting, and some of the targeting hits are stupid or helmet to helmet and all that stuff. You know what it should be? If you act like a jerk off in the tunnel,
those 4 guys are suspended. Jim Harbaugh wants.
No, it doesn't matter.
Wants to be brought up.
It should be an NCAA thing.
Yeah, they're suspended. Michigan State stepped in.
I know, but that came. This should be like.
I agree. They're going to get whatever punishment they get. They deserve.
Ridiculous.
I wouldn't say they should be going to jail over it, but
No. I don't know about that. That's a legal thing. I
don't know the story either. Like the guy on Michigan, he may have made a wrong turn on purpose and had been asking for it. We don't know. There's no audio there. He might have been like, watch this. I'm going to go into their locker room. And they said, yo, no. And that's, to me.
Yeah, we don't know.
To me, I'm going to reserve my judgment on the players that were involved because I don't know the full story. But nonetheless, it can happen.
If you notice, I didn't blame any. I'm just saying the whole thing is such an easy solve. If you want to get rid of hitting in the head, it's a major penalty when you do it. And they probably reduce those big hits because of that. You want to avoid this tunnel bullshit? Have protocols. You got to wait 2 minutes so everybody's in. And if you make a mistake, you're out the next week. The NCAA rules it, not the coach.
Yeah, and they're going to start fining the university for the actions of their players, and that's when you'll really
fining them. They'll just get like they'll just get a donor to write the check. It's got to be your player sits. Anyway, it went long. I thought it was going to be short. We didn't have a guest. My guest will probably come next week. And I appreciate you coming on, Chris. Who do the Packers play next week?
The Lions.
Oh Chris.
Yeah.
Chris.
I know
You
it can't go
can't
down
lose
like
to the
that. But I
Lions.
will say this: the Dolphins just traded a first round pick for Pro Bowl defensive end Bradley Chubb from Denver. So the Dolphins just went from average to very good without playing a game. That's the way I'm looking at that.
We'll see.
He's a
Or
really
maybe.
good player.
And listen, if Dolphins go to if the Dolphins become average or good or all this stuff, then I get my Patreon from Shecky Lawler. Michael. All right, that's it. That's my show. We'll see you next week with a very special guest here from the Omni in Atlanta. Thank you, Christopher, and I'll see you next week.